Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner. I am joined today by another special guest. I'm going to bring into the show here in 1 second. But today we're going to talk about design. This is a very interesting topic. I think I've covered it in some other episodes on the show, but it's worth repeating and it's worth continuing to talk about because everyone has their own opinions of design, their own approaches to design, but it's a very, very critical component to building anything, building software, and not just even software. We all like the designs of whether you love them or hate them, but iPhones, like the design, the user experience of things. It's really an important thing inside of tools, inside of products, inside of software. So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to do a deep dive on this with Daniel Andor. He is the founder of Duran. It's a lead product design studio focused on building user-centered products that drive growth and retention. So we connected. I thought this would be a really cool and interesting conversation to talk about inside of the context of this show. So before I bring him in, please be sure to subscribe, like, rate, and review the show wherever you're listening or watching on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever the case might be. As always, really, really appreciate that. So without any further ado, a man with, I would say, the greatest first name ever, to be honest, only because it shares mine. But welcome to the show, Daniel. How are you?
Thanks. Glad to be here. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm waiting for the holidays, honestly. A bit tired nowadays.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. I think we're all like that, when it gets down to the holiday time. It looks very much like holidays where I'm recording right now in Pennsylvania. We got some snow coming down here. So I don't know if it's going to be a white Christmas or not, but it's always a good time.
Oh, yeah. On our side, it's not snowing yet, so
No.
hopefully.
Well, Daniel's in Romania for those of you who don't know. So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about yourself, Daniel.
Sure. So yeah, my background is in product design or UX design, or I don't know, it goes by a lot of names nowadays. So it's really hard to pinpoint. But I'm doing product design for 15 years. I worked in and with different product companies from small startups to larger enterprise businesses. And in the last around 4 years, I started to run where we most of the times work with products around the pre-seed seed stage, and they reach that point where what they put together is not working, not scaling anymore. Customers starts to complain about products being more challenging to use, or they couldn't figure out how to use them, these kind of stuff. And on the side, I also mentor founders in different accelerators. So in a nutshell, kind of this is what I do.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So yeah, so there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of case studies I want to ask you about some, excuse me, of things that you've done. But let's before we do that, let's get into maybe just a very broad question to start. Um why is design so important in this world? Like and we're talking specifically about SaaS products, online, apps, different things like that. Why, because and this is going to lead into my next question is why I'm asking that. So like,
Mhm.
why is it something worth putting time and effort and money into?
That's a very good question. Like, even when we are having discussions regarding design with our clients, sometimes it's really hard to define what everybody means by design, because some think about the how the thing looks like, the interface. Some think about how the product works, which is like beneath the interface, the user experience and the flows
Mhm.
and so on. And especially when we are talking about the UX side or the user experience side, we are more discussing about user flows and improving user flows and making products easier to use for customers, these kind of aspects. Uh, Now, as as there are more and more products out there, it's like more competition on the side of what products customers will use, switching from one product to the other, and so on. Obviously, there is something that you have to have unique in a way to make those customers either stick with you, either just go from the product that they use to a new one
Mhm.
to cover the switching cost. Now, if you do the simple analysis of like how and why people pick up different products, you will point it out really well regarding the iPhone, the whole discussion about iPhones and Androids. And when you just do the very rational feature by feature comparison. A lot of times the specs on the Android were higher than what you have on the iPhone, but the
Right.
iPhone was way easier to use. And for most people, it was almost like, I don't know, a no-brainer. You just pick that one because you have no issues with it. You know how to use it. It connects to your laptop and whatever you have at home. So it's like you buy in a way the experience. And if you think about the whole user experience side for SaaS products, a lot of times it's quite like that. So you cover definitely what the most important features that you have to get the job done. But after that, there is a lot of discussion about, am I able to use this product on a daily to day basis? Does it work for my own setup? Am I comfortable using it? If it's easy to use for me or for my team as well. So all kind of discussions about this, and all these goes back in a way to how the design is put together and how the product works. So if you're thinking about why it's important to invest in the design, well, this is one of the most important parts, right? Because you want to get customers, which is the acquisition part, and a lot of times it's on the marketing side. You get the customers into the product, but besides getting them into the product, you want to activate them. That means that you want to show them what the product can do for them and they understand the value of the product. That's one side. And the other side is that you want to retain, monetize, and so on, eventually create referrals, which is again a product aspect that you want to show them in a way how to use the product, to get them up to speed, to skill them up, and eventually, if they are part of a team, invite the other team members into and expand in the company. And besides this being a product related aspect, it's a lot of user experience as well behind, so customers understand and they know how to do it. This was like a very long, this
Yeah. No, there's a
crazy.
lot. Yeah, very good overview. That there's a lot in there. But and that I'm very happy you brought that up because that kind of led me into this next question is um this chicken and egg kind of
Mhm.
dichotomy between design and functionality, right? So I remember when I got started in the software world, like building apps and building software for myself and then for clients and such, like I was never a design first guy. Like I was a typical developer, I think. Like I was just like, can I build this thing to work? Even if it's super ugly. Like I don't care. I just want it to solve the problem and do the thing that I needed to do. Like I could care less what it looked like, right?
Mhm.
Um, the more I've matured in this and the more I've grown in things, I've seen, that there really is an importance of design and of having it's almost like building a house, right? Like building a software tool is kind of like building a house. Like, how do you build a house if you don't have a blueprint first? If you don't have like, okay, here's where this needs to be and here's where I want this to look like, you have to have an end goal in mind of what you're trying to build. So I'm curious. I want to frame the question like this. Like, do you think for someone let's take just a sample of your clients of people that you've worked with, do you see people that have more success like that thought in a design first mentality, or do you see them having more success if like we built the thing, now we just need to pretty it up and make it look better? You know what I'm trying to say? Like what?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got it. I think I
yeah.
got it. Uh, well, and yeah, we had these kind of discussions with clients and with the people I mentor as well. Um, Design is not about prettying something up, and this is one of the things that I would say
Mm,
a lot of people get it wrong. They think that, oh, we build this thing and we just bring in somebody and like put the lipstick on the pig kind of stuff, you know.
yeah,
Now it looks better.
yeah.
And it might solve some of the visual aspects of the product for sure, but it doesn't really solve the main problems of the product. And this ties back to what I was discussing before. Like design, at least how I view design and how we on the product design side usually talk about design, it's not just the UI or not, it's not just the interface or colors, buttons, stuff like that. It goes more in depth in even into how you think about features and feature prioritization. So obviously, if you are launching a product in a domain that it's not very digitalized yet, there is not a lot of competition in there, then it's easy to do to like use a UI kit and you throw something together, you launch it, and it's good to go. But if you are trying to do the same thing in a domain that's like way more competition in it, then that just won't go. This is like the never-ending discussion
Mm,
of what's an MVP. You
yeah,
know, is it a scrappy product or not? Well, it really depends on where you launch it. If it can be a very scrappy product in a non-digitalized area, but the same version of another product in another domain where you have competition, it just won't go because already
interesting.
the customers already have different expectations and you have to play with their expectations. In the end, you come to solve their problems. In order to solve the problems, you have to understand their problems and their context. And that's already a design thinking framework of how you do things, right? So if you are thinking about that, then you usually start with design quite early on. Like we are having discussions about interviewing customers and how you talk with the customers, with the end customers, not necessarily with your customer, but like the customer of your customer, in order to create a product that solves their needs. And then that's also part of the design. That's like design thinking is basically that, how you collect the needs of the people, how you make sense of that and find patterns, how you come up with like a user persona and user flows and how you test all of that. That's also part of design. So
Hmm.
though some developers or engineers might do that without naming it like this, it's still design. You design the frame of the product, right? As you design the blueprint of the house, to use your own analogy. So you design like kind of this is how we want to operate, and then on the engineering side, you find out how to build that thing that we want to do, right? So if we
Okay.
are talking about the whole lean way of building products, then a lot of times you have the idea of a small team that is self-sufficient, and the small team is usually a designer, an engineer, and the PM or somebody on the business side that bridge the whole thing together and make sense of this. So yeah, I would say you should start with at least a design mentality or a design thinking mentality in the beginning to understand the problem you want to solve and use that to move forward. And at one point, you will invest even more in the interface part and the visual aspects of this.
Okay. Yeah. No surprise you gave me that one. But that given what you do. But that was very interesting about your thinking about your target market. Like if you're breaking into a market where the expectations would already be like, hey, if you have a product for this, like it better be pretty because we already have this super high standard of something. Whereas if
Yeah.
you're breaking into something where it's a brand new blue ocean, it's like these people, it's a brand new thing, you could probably get away with something that's not as design focused at first because you're just trying to solve a problem first. That's very, very interesting approach to that. I did not expect that. That's really good. It's really good.
Like even if you think about how you go, like you have the product, right? Let's say you build the product, you have the product. What you do next, it's you if you didn't start it with figuring out who you will serve, then you will start to look around for people that might need something like you've built. And a lot of times that's way harder than going the other way around when you
Yeah.
figure out who you want to serve, or you have in a way an understanding of the problem and you have a network of those people and you just go there and in a way almost build the product with them instead of building something for somebody that you don't know.
Yeah, building products with people is definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go. So, okay. Another question I have. I tend to ask very broad questions, so I apologize in advance.
Yeah, no
But
worries. I like it.
but that's kind of what I like to do on the show. I try to make it applicable for just about anyone listening, right? So, this might be a tough one, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. Like, um, if you had to give like three overarching principles, like three things to really encapsulate, like what would be the three principles? And it might not have to be three. You could do kind of, 3 to 5, whatever you want to do. That would classify like a well-designed product. Like if you're following, like what are the three pillars or two or three pillars that we need to like always keep in mind, regardless of product, regardless of anything? Is it, cleanliness? Is it experience? Is it flow? Is it ease of use? Like what are the top things that you see across the board?
Could give you a very broad answer, probably. Like
Well, a
in the
broad
way,
question deserves a broad answer. So,
like in the way, if you want to sum it up, it should be a product that answers the needs of the customer, and then it should work and meet the it should work for the specific customer and meet the customer where the customer is. So if you're thinking like that, uh, then you can then go a bit deeper and say, okay, if you want to achieve that, right, to be the product and meet the customer where the customer is, then first you have to know the customer. You have to understand the customer, you have to understand the problem, and to understand eventually what other tools the customer use in order to somehow fit into that scheme, right? And then you have to decide if you will compete with those or integrate with those products that are already on the market and they use, and a lot of other things. Uh, but everything starts from there. These are the first things that we also do when we start a project. We try to map out the context, as we call it, and we just stay 2 hours in with our customers, and like we map out as much as stuff as we can, right? And usually the discussions are about personas or target customer or ICP, or name it as you want, the problems that you want to solve for them, and we go a bit even deeper about business model and target, like where do you want to go in like 2 years, and how you know you are on the right path, and how you do metrics and these kind of stuff. But to get back to your question, I would say the most important part is kind of that meet the customer where the customer is. And if you want to do like a step forward, and like you that also means that you understand even the products and the competition that's there, so you kind of know how to baseline. And you have to be at least this if you want to have a shot, or otherwise it just won't work.
Okay.
And the other part is, if you want to go a step forward, then find ways to add a bit of a delight for them, because
Mm.
then it might be, I don't know, for Airbnb, like the new isometric whatever illustrations, they look really nice. Does the product work without them? Yeah, definitely. It's like we didn't have them a year ago and everybody would still book stuff there, so it wasn't a big problem. Does the product look better? Yeah, it looks better. But delight can be
Interesting.
anything else, not just the UI side. It can be a lot of other things.
Yeah. Yeah. So hiding a delight in it. That's really cool. I like that. Okay. All right. So now I asked you the broad questions. Now we'll get a little more specific. Can you give us like a case study? Can you give us something to kind of share with the audience around like, okay, we there was somebody that came to us that was looking for this. Maybe their design was not, was far from perfect, and we kind of helped improve it, and kind of what that led to, and like,
Mhm.
inspire us a little bit. Let's hear it.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, most of the products we work on are around the pre-seed seed stage, or equivalent if they are bootstrap. And equivalent means that they are launched a couple of months ago, up to a year. They already have some customers on the using the product. They might have even some revenue in some cases. But the thing is that they, in a way, get best to the first circle of people that get into the product, which are somehow mostly gathered by the founders. And new people start getting in. And those new people, in a way, start complaining about the product in different ways. It can be that it's not easy to use, that it's
Mm,
way more challenging than they expected, that there are features that are missing, though it might be even in the product, but they can't find them, or they can't use the features. So this kind of stuff. So a lot of times, the stuff they complain about, it's not that it looks in a specific way. It's more like it doesn't work as we expected, or it's not as we expected. And that expectation usually comes from the market. This is why the domain thing that I mentioned in the beginning is important. In which domain you play, because you automatically will be compared to something. And
right.
usually that's the baseline. Uh, and yeah, these are most of the times kind of these are the challenges. And what we do is we split our engagement usually in 3 parts. We have what I call a context mapping, and I briefly discussed that. And the whole reason behind the context mapping is just to understand where we stay and what are the main challenges there, right? And also who's the customer who we want to target. During this phase, we kind of try to drag in as much information as possible. Some comes from the founders, some comes from user feedback, analytics data, interviewing customers that are in the product or using the product. If possible, even those that churn. Those are definitely more challenging, but usually they tend to give you most interesting aspects of why they actually
Sure.
left the product.
Yeah.
Um, and once we have all these puzzle pieces put together with like a definition of a user persona, definition of user flows, and a somewhat understanding of what's happening in the product, it's easier to see kind of what are the main problems. And a lot of times, as I mentioned, it's not about how things look; it's more like how things work. Now, from this point, we start to do a couple of workshops with the team that we work with. And during this whole phase, we adopt a very lean approach of how we do the workshops and how we move forward. So in the next step, we start doing a bit of a research and then doing sketching and prototyping. And once we have a prototype, we actually end up testing the prototype with the customers. Not with our customers, but the customers of the customers.
Hmm.
So the users that actually use the product on a day-to-day basis. And the whole reason behind this is to understand if we are going the right direction with how we try to solve the challenges or not. And we want to get that information as fast as possible. So instead of leaving it to after development, which happens a lot of times, we do that after the first solution that we have that we think that is good enough. And then once we have the feedback from the customers, we iterate on the solution and just then we move towards the design phase. In the design phase, usually, yeah, we redesign the visual aspects, let's put it that way, as well. So we redesign the interface too. But what we really focus on is to make sure that the user flows are streamlined, people can use the product, they understand how to go around and stuff like this. And just to give you like a bit of uh, uh, an outcome in a way of this whole thing or what can lead to, we usually ask our customers after that because don't track the data, but we ask for feedback and if they have anything noticeable that they can report back after a couple of months. And we had all kind of feedback. Some sent over screenshots from what they got from their customers that they really like the product and really like the new way to use it and these kind of stuff from Slack. We've got also reports on increased revenue because we fixed the flow when customers started to actually end up not using the product but like dropping off.
Hmm.
And that was for a marketplace where they had a success fee and they basically couldn't collect the success fee because they didn't know that people ended up in a successful relationship with the person that they wanted to hire.
Uh,
So they moved to emails, and from moving to emails, nobody reported back to actually end up paying. They
yeah.
paid the subscription, but they didn't pay the success fee in the end. Uh, Reduced churn, obviously, for some of our customers, at least some. They reported it back as that was one of the outcomes. We also helped one of the customer move to the European market. They were a Romanian company and they wanted to expand in Europe. And they figured out that the product just can't support it at this stage as it was built. And they wanted to redesign basically to have a proper base for what they want to build. And this is what we help them achieve. So yeah, these are the most stuff that came to my mind from the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, no, that's useful. I mean, so if you guys are out there listening and you're kind of in that stage you talked about, seed, pre-seed, like this is definitely something worth looking into because it's very important. And as someone who has been in the trenches of building things for a long time, as I mentioned, I was never a design-minded person. Really coming to be a convert in that of being like, that's actually that I was leaving a lot on the table by doing that. So yeah, I would definitely look into these types of things.
Look,
And
even if you think about it, like the approach of not thinking too much about design can get you up to a point. Uh, that point, as we already discussed,
yeah,
it really depends on the domain and the expectations of the customers. But if you want to scale, then at some point you have to think about design.
yeah,
And thinking about design, a lot of like in some cases, it's not about it is it's definitely not just about the interface. So, like, just to give like a weird note on this, like a lot of times, a lot of Sometimes, not a lot of times. Sometimes, when we do the workshops, we do the workshops with a larger team and with different and various domains or roles into that specific from the specific team we work with. And sometimes the nice or some interesting aspects or weird solutions come from developers and engineers, and we end up, you would expect that the designer creates the best solution or the best option or whatever. No, actually, we had quite a lot of projects where the engineers came up with a very interesting solution. It and
Hmm.
because we use pen and paper sketches instead of like Figma designs or whatever, everybody was on the same level of what they could create. And sometimes the engineers had some really good ideas that we incorporated in the larger product, and then we ended up testing that, and it worked well. So I wouldn't, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I wanted to say. Design, in a way, it works for everybody. It's not just about the interface, or it's not just about how it looks. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, multiple, two heads are better than one, they always say. So that's very interesting here. So, all right. Well, this has been very, very interesting. I really, really appreciate you coming on. Do you have anything else to add, or where can we go to find more?
The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. I would say I'm decently active around there, and if anybody has any questions, happy to chat and connect. Uh, and yeah, other than, I would say design will be more, at least in the near future, I see design and especially UX being more and more important in how products are built, and it will impact a lot of stuff going forward. Um, yeah, kind of that's it, I would say. Just focus on what your customers want, and try to integrate their problems and challenges and come up with better solutions for them, and in a way take care as much as possible of them. And that's one way to think about design. Yeah,
And that's the name of the game. We're all trying to solve problems for more people, and that's how you make more money. And that
exactly.
is the name of the game. All right. Well, I will include the links. We'll put your LinkedIn link in the show notes, and also the link to, I think it's Duran.co as well too. We'll put that in there for you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on this show, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Daniel, for coming. This was really, really enlightening, very interesting conversation. I was excited to talk about this. So you
My pleasure.
definitely provided some nuggets. So I really appreciate that. So, all right, Daniel. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you all out there for watching, listening, and tuning in for all of these. Be sure to keep tuning in. Be sure to like, rate, subscribe, review, whatever it is you are. That is always super appreciated for the show. All right, guys. We will talk to you next time. Thanks, Daniel, and we'll talk later.
Thanks.